Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Also, you can request any novel so I can turn into audiobooks. Check out our Patreon for more details.
1. Halfway through adding points, you tell me this is the Harry Potter world? You won the gold medal in the All-Britain Primary School Mathematics competition in your first year, and it was an unprecedented perfect score. In your second year, you swept the gold medals in various subjects in the middle school division, dominating the most outstanding middle school students in all of Britain. Starting from your third year, even in sports, you've shown extraordinary talent: table tennis, fencing. Charles Evans, the Muggles all agree that you are the most talented student in Britain, saying that you will definitely win some kind of Nobel Prize in the future. So, you are the young Albus Dumbledore of the Muggle world, right? Then your brain should be as precious as Albus Dumbledore's, precious research material. In the dim basement, a crazy old man in a black robe looked at the young man tied to a chair with fanatical eyes, as if he were looking at some rare treasure. And the young man he called Charles Evans was sitting there blankly at the moment, as if struck by lightning. Just as the old man in the black robe said, Charles was indeed a talented student famous throughout Britain. He had just finished his speech at the school graduation ceremony and was on his way back to his solitary apartment when the old man in the black robe suddenly jumped out with a wooden stick. At the time, Charles didn't pay much attention, only thinking that it might be some festival and this old man was playing cosplay on the street. It wasn't until the next moment, when the old man in the black robe waved the wooden stick, that everyone on the street seemed to be under some spell, directly bypassing the location where Charles was. It was then that Charles was startled and realized the old man in the black robe didn't seem to be playing cosplay, he was a real wizard. The next second, he fell unconscious after the old man in the black robe waved his wand. When he woke up, he was tied to a chair in this dim basement. At this moment, listening to the old man in the black robe babbling about Muggles and mentioning a familiar name, Albus Dumbledore, Charles truly felt like he had been screwed over. Damn, I thought this was just a parallel world in the 1990s. Damn system, you didn't tell me this was the wizarding world. That's right, Charles was a transmigrator. In his previous life, Charles was an ordinary office worker with no special hobbies other than watching TV shows and movies. Until that day, a transmigration starter crossed half the street, crashed through the wall of Charles' house, and directly killed him, sending him to Britain in the 1990s. At first, Charles was a little worried about his future livelihood. After all, like most transmigrators, he was an orphan in this life, had no relatives, and grew up in an orphanage. And in Britain, they don't talk about whether kings, nobles, generals, and ministers are born that way, nor do they have compulsory education. If you want to go to university, the tuition fees are no joke. Many of Charles' skills from his previous life were useless in this foreign land in this era. It was really not easy to live a decent life. It wasn't until a ding sounded in Charles' mind and something called the infinite evolution system bound itself to Charles that he breathed a sigh of relief. As the name suggests, the function of this system is infinite evolution. Any knowledge Charles learns can be evolved to a higher level through this system. For example, if he learns first-grade math, he can use the system to evolve and master more derivative math knowledge, and even use this as a basis to evolve advanced math content. Even some sports theories can be evolved. For example, basic theories such as the landing point, spin, speed, and changes of a table tennis ball can be evolved into advanced techniques such as double-sided loop, straight bat horizontal hit, and backhand flick. And except for not being able to directly improve physical fitness, Charles can perfectly master all the techniques evolved. It was precisely by relying on the infinite evolution system that Charles gradually became a young genius who caused a sensation throughout Britain, from an orphan in an orphanage. Charles originally thought that his destiny in this life should be to become an explorer of the human civilization frontier by relying on the system, leading humanity from Earth to the vast starry sky. But at this moment, he realized that fate had played a cruel joke on him. He had focused on science for 10 years, but the world itself was not scientific. Was this the Harry Potter world? The magic in this world had nothing to do with science. The Oxio spell could summon distant objects out of thin air, apparition could travel through space, and there was also the abnormal time turner that involved time. What kind of science could achieve this? If the Trisolarans knew apparition, what the hell would they be afraid of Earth's technological explosion? Charles wanted to cry but had no tears. Focusing on science for 10 years in the wizarding world, was there anything more screwed up than this? Oh right, there was, and that was being attacked and kidnapped by a crazy old wizard. Looking at the situation, he seemed to be very interested in his brain. When he realized his situation, Charles temporarily couldn't care about the collapse of his worldview and his attention returned to reality. He saw the old wizard in the black robe looking at Charles with a face full of doubt. Speaking of which, are you really as smart as Dumbledore? Why do you look so dull, not very smart? If that's the case, you won't be of much value to me. Charles squeezed out a difficult smile. Mr. Wizard, I don't think you can tell if a person is smart from their appearance. Or rather, the smarter someone is, the less smart they appear, even a bit crazy. That Albus Dumbledore you mentioned, if he's really as smart as you say, I'd bet he looks completely bonkers, definitely has a lot of quirks, like being particularly fond of eating strange and bizarre things. At these words, the old wizard in the black robe was stunned for a moment, then his eyes lit up, and he nodded repeatedly. What you said actually makes some sense. Then, he looked at Charles and asked, then what do you think of me? Charles said smoothly, I think you probably look a bit crazier than Dumbledore, but you have to understand, geniuses are seen as insane in the eyes of ordinary people. How can mortals understand geniuses? So the crazier someone appears to ordinary people, the more of a genius they are. In summary, you should be a bit more of a genius than Dumbledore, and far surpass me. I, Charles Evans, am merely a mortal born in an era without you. If you are going to do any research on the brain, I sincerely believe that only your genius mind is capable of this task. Am I worthy? Not a chance. The old wizard in the black robe was completely engrossed. Yes, you're right, absolutely right. Charles Evans, although you are a muggle, your insight is far stronger than those old fossils in the Order of Merlin. Those old fogies who are stuck in their ways actually mocked my genius ideas as a madman's ravings. I must prove to them that my ideas are the most genius designs in history. Tracing the origin of magic, the sublimation of the soul, the most ancient magic. The old wizard in the black robe seemed to be lost in self-admiration, or perhaps his madness had flared up, as he kept muttering some difficult-to-pronounce terms. Then, his gaze turned to Charles. Charles, you actually possess the profound insight to see my talent. I, Dark, acknowledge you. Among all mortals besides myself, your mind, Charles, is the strongest. Although there is no second me in the world for me to research, your mind must be stronger and have more potential for sublimation than those 73 idiots before. The next moment, the old wizard in the black robe pulled out a bottle of gurgling green potion that looked remarkably like foul energy, and without a word, he forced it towards Charles' mouth. Come, drink this bottle of sublimation potion, a noble evolution awaits you. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 2. Magical power out of control, another bottle. As the old wizard, who called himself Dark, attempted to force the so-called sublimation potion into Charles' mouth, Charles' pupils suddenly contracted. His infinite evolution system didn't deduce knowledge unconditionally. It required something called deduction points, which were obtained from Charles' consumption. The rarer and more valuable the things Charles consumed, the more deduction points he could obtain. Ordinary food yielded very few points, but if he consumed precious gold, silver, or jewels, the deduction points would be much higher. As for digestion, there was no need to worry. As long as these things were eaten, they would be converted into deduction points by the system. Even if he swallowed a gold coin, as long as it didn't cut his esophagus or throat, Charles could use the system to convert it with a single thought, and it wouldn't burden him. But Charles hadn't tried whether the system would work on potions from the magical world. Especially according to Dark, he had already experimented on 73 people before. These included both wizards and muggles, but based on the criteria Dark used to find him, those experimenters should definitely not have been foolish people. Yet, even so, they all died in Dark's experiments, which showed what a monstrous thing this sublimation potion was. If there was even a slight possibility, Charles didn't want to gamble his life on whether the system could also convert the sublimation potion poured into his mouth. As the sublimation potion approached Charles' mouth, an unprecedented sense of crisis erupted in Charles' heart. His eyes instantly became blank. Sharp bangs and roars suddenly began to churn and echo in the basement. An invisible force spread out from Charles, sweeping like a storm, whistling and repelling everything around him. This sudden scene startled Dark, and he almost knocked the bottle of sublimation potion to the ground. But after the surprise, Dark's eyes revealed even greater ecstasy than before. Magic power surge? Aha, you actually have magical talent, you're a little wizard. Excellent, this is truly excellent. I thought you were a muggle, which would somewhat affect the effect of the sublimation potion, but I didn't expect this last flaw to be filled. Charles Evans, with your mind, you are a young Dumbledore. I couldn't find Dumbledore to experiment on, but I didn't expect to find you. It seems that destiny itself is protecting me, to let this great sublimation be completed in my hands. Immediately after, Dark waved his wand. Charles, in a state of magic power surge, suddenly felt as if the surrounding air had turned into a swamp. The magic power surging out of his body was directly solidified. The strong wind in the basement froze, the roar stopped, and then gradually dissipated into nothingness. The anticipation that had arisen in Charles' heart due to the magic power surge instantly vanished, and he was also horrified by the performance of the old wizard named Dark before him. According to his memory of the original Harry Potter book, a little wizard's magic power surge was enough to make even adult wizards flustered. In special circumstances, such as when life was threatened, or when the little wizard was mentally deranged, the magic power surge would become even more violent. In such a situation, adult wizards could even be killed. But Dark had just casually resolved Charles' magic power surge, which showed that his strength was definitely far beyond that of ordinary adult wizards. Considering that he could continuously perform the so-called sublimation experiments on more than 70 people without being apprehended by the Ministry of Magic's Aurors, it was clear that even elite Aurors were probably no match for Dark. This old man was definitely not someone Charles could contend with at this moment. Realizing this, Charles sighed and gave up the idea of fighting him with force. Seeing Charles' resigned expression, Dark grinned and said faintly, "Don't worry, I've made adjustments to this version of the sublimation potion, and the success rate will definitely be much higher than the previous versions. If you're lucky enough, it's still possible to survive and complete the sublimation." Charles remained silent. Dark had probably said these words to the previous 70-odd experimenters, so the credibility was self-evident. He could only hope that the system was powerful enough to also work on this evil sublimation potion. At this moment, Dark opened the bottle cap, pried open Charles' mouth, and poured the entire bottle of bubbling sublimation potion down his throat. And after the sublimation potion entered his mouth, Charles suddenly began to struggle, his eyeballs almost rolling out. It was awful, truly awful. He swore that he hadn't drunk anything this awful in all his lifetimes combined. The taste was like the fermented foam of rotten sea fish, octopuses, and other things piled together. And the viscous texture, like the mucus from some marine creature, Charles felt like it was almost stringing in his throat. Along with it came instinctive nausea and creepiness. Charles twisted violently in the chair, seemingly wanting to reach into his throat with his hand to dig out the sublimation potion he had just drunk. White foam was already overflowing from the corners of his mouth due to the intense nausea. Seeing this scene, the old wizard Dark's eyes showed intense disappointment. He had seen this sight more than 70 times before. All the test subjects, after drinking the sublimation potion, felt intense pain and nausea, then began to foam at the mouth. Following that were even more violent reactions, until their bodies mutated and collapsed, turning into a pool of foul-smelling pus. After capturing Charles and witnessing Charles' magic riot with his own eyes, concluding that Charles was comparable to Albus Dumbledore in his youth, Dark had extremely high expectations for Charles. If even such talent couldn't achieve sublimation through the sublimation potion, could his potion truly succeed? Could it be true, as those who mocked him in the Order of Merlin claimed, that this was just an illusion, the ravings of a madman? Dark's eyes were bloodshot, revealing paranoia and fanaticism as he muttered wildly, "No, no. I've seen it, I've seen the massive forms hidden beneath the dark canopy in my dreams. I've heard it, I've heard the ancient whispers from the dark corners of the world in my madness. The source of magic, the supreme will. They exist, they must exist. My sublimation potion will definitely allow people to reach that level. How could I fail? I won't, I just need more test subjects, 100, 1,000, 10,000, no matter how many more people die, I must witness that magnificent sight." Then, Dark gripped his wand, a cold look in his eyes as he looked at Charles. He had already decided to clean up the scene and then go find the next test subject. But just then, Charles' appearance made Dark freeze. After the painful foaming at the mouth, Charles' body didn't rapidly begin to mutate and collapse like the previous 70-plus test subjects. Instead, it remained completely intact. Hope reappeared in his eyes. At this moment, Charles also suddenly opened his eyes. Besides the relief of surviving a disaster, there was also uncontrollable ecstasy in his eyes. "Boss, do you have any more of this stuff?" "Another bottle." Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 3. Soaring points, Deep Blue, deduce for me. Charles' ecstasy at this moment wasn't just because the infinite evolution system, which he called Deep Blue, was powerful enough to actually recycle the sublimation potion into evolution points, saving him from the fate of death. It was also because after drinking this bottle of sublimation potion, the system prompts in his mind started ringing non-stop. Evolution points plus 100, evolution points plus 100. One must know that on a normal day, even if he ate 8 meals, the evolution points he could get were only a meager few. Only by swallowing gold and precious jewels could he obtain more evolution points, but at most, it would only be a few dozen points. But now, during the process of the sublimation potion being converted, each jump was hundreds of points. By the time this bottle of sublimation potion was completely converted, the evolution points Charles had gained were close to 10,000, comparable to the total evolution points he had obtained in the past 10 years. It was only then that Charles suddenly realized something. He might have misunderstood the system's rule for converting evolution points over the past decade. He had thought that the system converted the items he ate into evolution points, and the number of points was calculated based on their rarity. The older and rarer the item, the more evolution points it would convert into. After he had previously swallowed an antique jewel he had collected, he had gained over 100 evolution points at once, which seemed to confirm this point. But if he considered that this world was the wizarding world, then perhaps it should be calculated based on the amount of magic contained in the item. Ordinary food contained almost no magic, so it could only provide a few evolution points. Gold, on the other hand, was a material used in the wizarding world, providing more evolution points. And the older the treasure, the more likely it was related to the wizarding world, and the greater the possibility of containing magic, which was why it provided more evolution points. This time, he had drunk the sublimation potion, which was meticulously brewed by a strange wizard like Dak, and he could obtain tens of thousands of evolution points at once. Tens of thousands of evolution points, even if used separately, had already made Charles the most recognized genius student in the entire UK, winning various competition awards effortlessly. What if they were concentrated in one area? It would have the effect of turning decay into magic. Perhaps Charles' hope of surviving Dak lay in this. Therefore, at this moment, Charles was not so repulsed by the incredibly disgusting taste of the sublimation potion. Thinking of the tens of thousands of evolution points it brought, he even felt it smelled a bit fragrant and couldn't wait to have another bottle. However, at this time, after Charles expressed his desire for another bottle, the old wizard Dak didn't react at all. He seemed to be in disbelief, falling into joy and madness. Didn't die? He really didn't die? And he even wants another bottle. What does this mean? It means the improved sublimation potion formula is effective, and the effect is very good. It's done. Dark, am going to succeed. Dak excitedly started dancing with joy, but after a while, Dak showed a hesitant look again, staring at Charles and muttering to himself. He didn't die, but the effect of the sublimation potion didn't show on him either. Where are the characteristics of sublimation? There are none. Dak immediately felt anxious again and started pacing back and forth restlessly in the basement. Could it be that by making the sublimation potion milder, I've actually made it ineffective? It doesn't kill people, but it might not achieve the effect of sublimation. In that case, isn't it possible that I've failed? Have I succeeded, or have I failed? Listening to Dak's delirious ravings, Charles' scalp tingled. He could see that Dak's mental state was extremely unstable, and he both longed for the sublimation potion to succeed and was hit by repeated denials and failures, even doubting whether the sublimation potion could succeed himself. If he let Dak continue to think wildly like this, he really didn't know what he might do. So Charles pondered for a moment, then decisively said, "No need to doubt, your sublimation potion is indeed effective." As soon as these words were spoken, Dak froze there and turned to look at Charles. The next moment, his eyes showed a fierce light, and he said resolutely, "You're lying to me, you must be lying to me." He pulled out his wand, his expression becoming increasingly fierce. "I'm going to hit you with a Cruciatus curse, so you know the consequences of lying to me." Do you know the Cruciatus curse? Do you know what it feels like to be hit by the Cruciatus curse? I used it on that Order of Merlin member who called me crazy, ha ha ha. I drove him completely mad. Now let's see who's crazy. Do you want to try? Charles, at this moment, shouted loudly, I can prove it, I can prove that your sublimation potion has indeed worked. If you want to torture me, and it happens to affect the sublimation potion's effectiveness, I guarantee you'll regret it immensely. Dak's eyes showed hesitation. Proof? You can prove it? How will you prove it? Charles finally calmed down and said faintly, You developed the sublimation potion to make people's souls sublimate and reach the so-called source of magic, right? Then, during the process of soul sublimation, will there be some strange manifestations, such as stronger learning ability, or even the ability to turn decay into wonder, where any spell will be completely different in the hands of a sublimated person? Just teach me the simplest spell, and I'll show you. Charles' words immediately enlightened Dak, and he repeatedly agreed. Yes, yes, how could a sublimated person's spell be the same as that of ordinary people? It must be something so strange that it would make even Dumbledore turn pale with fright. Just teach you a simple spell, and you can prove it. Dak hesitated again. But what if you're lying to me? Are you trying to learn a spell and then kill me? Charles gave a wry smile at this. I'm a child not even 11 years old yet. You can teach me the simplest non-offensive spell. Do you think I have the ability to kill you? Dak thought about it and agreed. So, after hesitating for a while longer, he finally nodded. Along with the waving of the wand and the gestures, a short syllable sounded. Luminosity flicker. A bright light shone from the tip of Dak's wand, finally adding some visibility to the dim basement. A moment after the light appeared, Charles adjusted to it. He subconsciously looked around, and the sight that met his eyes sent a chill down his spine. He was tied to a chair, which he already knew. But this basement seemed to have the undetectable extension charm applied, making it much more spacious than Charles had imagined. The chair Charles was sitting on was just one of at least a dozen in this basement. However, there were no traces of people on the other chairs, only pools of foul-smelling liquid remaining, along with people's clothes, jewelry, and so on in the liquid. Just one look was enough to know what had become of the people who had once been tied to those chairs. Charles took a deep breath, trying to calm the feeling of nausea. But the next moment, the increasingly strong stench that came with his inhalation made Charles unable to help but open his mouth and retch to the side. Dak didn't care about this at all. His mind was solely focused on verifying whether his sublimation potion was effective. After explaining the casting gestures and incantation for the Lumos spell to Charles, Dak dumped out a bag next to him. Clatter, clatter, at least a dozen wands rolled onto the floor. He randomly picked one, put it in Charles' hand, and slightly loosened the ropes for Charles so he could move his arms freely and wave the wand. Dak held his wand and stared intently at Charles. Come on, let me see the sublimation effect you mentioned. Charles gripped the wand, which was still covered in dirt and sticky liquid, and recalled Dak's explanation of the Lumos spell. The prompt from the infinite evolution system already sounded in his mind. Detected trainable knowledge, Lumos spell. Train? The next moment, Charles' eyes burst with light, and he roared in his mind. Deep Blue, train it for me. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 4. Lumos spell evolution, are the dead always right? Accompanying Charles' low growl in his mind, the infinite evolution system, which he called Deep Blue, emitted a cold, mechanical voice. Please specify the direction of evolution for the host. Charles said resolutely in his mind. Lethality. Start evolving the Lumos spell towards a more lethal direction. Instantly, Deep Blue responded, consuming 1,000 evolution points, beginning the initial evolution of the Lumos spell. The next moment, Charles felt a slight dizziness. The Lumos spell he had just learned immediately began to evolve within the system at an astonishing speed. Every second of evolution was equivalent to years of continuous practice and thought for an ordinary person. In just a few seconds, Charles felt as if he had cast the Lumos spell hundreds of thousands, even millions of times. The incantation and gesture for casting the Lumos spell were almost integrated into his instincts. He could even boast that when it came to the Lumos spell, no one's casting gesture could be more standard than his. But if the system's ability was limited to this, it wouldn't be called the infinite evolution system. After evolving the Lumos spell to be almost instinctive, the system began subsequent evolutions for the Lumos spell. A large amount of new knowledge began to flood into Charles' mind. New directions for spells were being evolved within the system, one by one. The Lumos spell could only emit a soft light, used to illuminate a small area. So how could the Lumos spell be developed in a more lethal direction? Naturally, increasing the light intensity was a feasible direction. After a short period, Deep Blue, which had begun evolving in this direction, gave a response. Initial evolution of the Lumos spell completed. The Lumos spell has been evolved into a more lethal spell, the Flash spell. Flash spell, a violent white light erupts from the tip of the wand. Flesh and blood creatures witnessing the white light will enter a brief state of blindness. After the blindness ends, effects such as prolonged double vision and dizziness will also remain. Along with Deep Blue's prompt, the Flash spell, a spell derived from the Lumos spell, also became instinctive for Charles, as if he had used it countless times. Charles frowned slightly. Compared to the Lumos spell, the Flash spell did indeed possess some lethality. But this lethality was too weak, it could only block the enemy's vision, similar to a flashbang, and could not cause direct damage. As a supportive spell, this spell was not bad, but lethality? Forget it. However, Deep Blue's strength lay in its ability to evolve a piece of knowledge almost infinitely. Charles currently had over 9,000 evolution points, which was completely enough for another wave of evolution. Deep Blue, keep evolving for me, keep strengthening the lethality. This time, Deep Blue's prompt sounded, consuming 5,000 evolution points, performing a secondary evolution based on the flash spell. The appearance of the flash spell proved that increasing the light intensity of the Lumos spell was indeed an effective direction. However, a large area of strong light could only cause damage to the eyes, and after the enemy closed their eyes or wore sunglasses, this damage became even more insignificant. So, could the strong light be concentrated? If the light was focused into a beam, and the energy was concentrated at one point, the lethality should have a qualitative improvement. Following this direction, Deep Blue continued to evolve. More and more knowledge began to flood into Charles' mind. It was as if in a parallel world, Charles was conducting experiments with the flash spell for decades, 24 hours a day, without interruption, solely focused on making the light and energy of the flash spell more and more concentrated. While Charles closed his eyes to receive this knowledge, Dak, who was waiting to witness the sublimation effect Charles claimed, showed an anxious and impatient expression in his eyes. "You little brat, are you stalling for time? Waiting for your muggle so-called police, or our magical aurors to save you? I'm telling you, if you dare to play tricks on me, if you dare to deceive me about the sublimation potion, I guarantee I'll let you have a good taste of the Cruciatus curse. I also have 100 methods more terrifying than the Cruciatus curse to torture you, do you understand?" Just then, Charles suddenly opened his eyes, and Deep Blue's prompt sounded in his mind. Secondary evolution of the Lumos spell completed. The laser spell has been evolved based on the flash spell. Laser spell, mimicking the principle of lasers in the Muggle world. The strong light emitted by the flash spell is constrained and concentrated, making its frequency consistent, thereby reducing the dispersion of light energy. A concentrated laser can cause the temperature in that area to rise sharply in a short period. Under continuous heating, it is even enough to melt and cut steel. The subsequent third evolution requires 10,000 evolution points. Current points are 4,396. Please acquire more evolution points for the host. Upon hearing this prompt, a glimmer of light shone in Charles' eyes, and an uncontrollable killing intent surged in his heart. The destructive power of the laser spell is far greater than that of the flash spell. It is already a purely offensive spell. As for the power of lasers, he had heard in his previous life that lasers could be used to cut and process steel. In addition, there is the very famous scene of the laser corridor in Resident Evil in movies and TV shows, where sharp lasers can easily slice through the human body. If he were to cast the laser spell on Dak without warning, he might be able to kill the dark wizard on the spot. Charles gripped his wand tightly and said to Dak, "I have no intention of delaying, it's just that the feeling of sublimation was too wonderful, so I took a moment to adapt." "Didn't you want to see what changes there would be when casting spells after sublimation? Then watch closely." Immediately, Charles waved his wand, his heart filled with killing intent, and the laser spell, almost turning into an instinct, was about to be unleashed. But in an instant, Charles noticed that Dak was also gripping his wand tightly. This old wizard, while truly insane, was by no means so muddled as to be defenseless against Charles. With a flicker of thought, Charles' hand gesture, which was originally prepared to cast the laser spell, changed. A strong light burst forth from Charles' wand, illuminating the area in front of the basement in a blinding white. And at the moment Charles' spell was cast, an invisible barrier had already appeared in front of the old wizard Dak, which was the shield charm, capable of blocking most spells. Seeing this scene, Charles felt a wave of relief, his back almost soaked with cold sweat. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and didn't actually use the destructive laser spell on Dak, otherwise it would definitely have been blocked by the shield charm. At that time, Charles' fate would have been hard to say. It was at this moment that the old wizard Dak, who had been momentarily blinded by the flash spell, laughed maniacally under the protection of the shield charm. The Lumos spell can have such an effect in the hands of this kid who hasn't learned a day of magic. Sublimation, it must be the sublimation potion working. Ha ha ha, it's done. After so many modifications to the sublimation potion, I'm really going to succeed. Charles looked at Dak, who was crying and extremely excited, his eyes flickering slightly. To kill Dak, the destructive power of the laser spell was not enough. He needed to continue evolving the Lumos spell. Evolve it once, twice, even 3 or 4 times, and there would always be a time when its power would be so great that even Dak's shield charm couldn't defend against it. However, to do this, he would need a large number of evolution points. Currently, the item that Charles had encountered that could provide the most evolution points in a short time was the sublimation potion that Dak had taken out. Therefore, after thinking for a moment, Charles said to Dak, who was still in his joy, "You're wrong, you've taken the wrong path. If you continue down this path, you will never be able to create a true sublimation potion." As soon as these words were spoken, Dak's wild laughter came to an abrupt halt. He opened his bloodshot eyes, his cold, insane expression completely undisguised. At the tip of his wand, a green light appeared, carrying monstrous killing intent, aimed at Charles. "Are you teaching me how to make the sublimation potion? Do you know how much effort I've put in and how many experiments I've done to improve the sublimation potion? How dare you say I've taken the wrong path? How dare you?" The terror of a life-or-death moment spread through Charles' heart. Charles gritted his teeth and shouted loudly, "Improve? Why improve?" Dak was stunned for a moment. "Because everyone who drank the sublimation potion died, so I need to improve the sublimation potion to make its effects more gentle." Before he could finish, Charles said faintly, "Do you think everyone is qualified for sublimation? If someone dies after drinking the sublimation potion, why is it the sublimation potion's problem? Why can't it be the deceased's problem? This shows that they are simply not qualified to sublimate. The one who is wrong is not you, the one who is wrong is not the sublimation potion, but this world. Think about it, how was your first version of the potion born? Crazy inspiration, brilliant ideas, as if ancient beings were whispering in your ear, transmitting the inspiration for this potion into your mind. Why don't you believe their revelations? Why soften the medicinal properties? How can sublimation proceed smoothly? You are too conservative, Dak, you need to be more radical, more extreme. Max it out, max out the medicinal properties for me, directly explode the magic of the sublimation potion, only then can you usher in the most glorious sublimation. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 5. Mad Configuration, Eternal Blazing Sun. Hearing Charles' words, Dak, who had been angry, froze on the spot as if enlightened. That's right. If someone dies from drinking sublimation potion, it must be the sublimation potion's fault, right? Couldn't it be that these guys are just too stupid and don't have the qualifications to sublimate? Charles' suggestion to maximize the effect of the sublimation potion, to hell with stability and safety, made Dak's eyes brighter than ever before. Yes, that's it. How could I be so stupid? I haven't figured this out all this time. The original sublimation potion was a product of inspiration that burst forth after I saw those magnificent, incomprehensible forms in my dreams and heard their voices containing the mysteries of the magic of the universe. In other words, that was a revelation given to me by the sublimators. And my subsequent modifications were based on the shallow understanding of magic by wizards. How ridiculous it is to use such knowledge to modify the revelation of the sublimators. Dak muttered to himself frantically, even giving himself a loud slap, tears and snot streaming down his face in excitement. At this moment, he looked at Charles, his eyes filled with gratitude and emotion. "Charles, my friend, you are indeed worthy of having a brain as precious as Dumbledore's." "No, Dumbledore didn't speak for my sublimation potion. What right does he have to compare with you? Your foresight is more than 100 times better than Dumbledore's. Only a genius like you can understand how grand my goal is, my friend. As long as the sublimation potion is successful, both you and I will shed this weak human body and embrace the great source of magic." Charles' expression was serious, with a hint of honor, and he said in a deep voice, "Flesh is weak, sublimation ascends." Dak also let out a high-pitched, excited cry. "Flesh is weak, sublimation ascends." Then, he immediately rummaged through the various medicine cabinets in the basement, preparing to remove all the stable elements from the sublimation potion as Charles had said. Chaotic, crazy magic would burst forth in the sublimation potion. Let me see, bone fracture grass, yes, this is needed, this is the key to shedding the form. Scarlet death knell, a herb born with a powerful curse, helps us shed this cursed human flesh and blood body. And this, blood crown. This, the main ingredient of demon potion. Dak seemed to be high, throwing one strange herb after another into the cauldron. Finally, he carefully took out a bottle, which contained a strange, disgusting green viscous liquid. The moment he saw this thing, Charles felt a wave of nausea and disgust, as if the rotten stench had passed through the glass bottle and poured into his nostrils. Dak, however, showed a look of intoxication, as if appreciating some rare treasure. And this, the most crucial thing in the sublimation potion, the traces left by those great existences. How magnificent the magic, how close to the origin. Immediately, he dripped 5 drops of the green viscous liquid into the cauldron. Instantly, the originally dark black potion in the cauldron began to boil violently, and its entire color also turned into a strange green, identical to the viscous liquid. Only when this pot of potion was boiled into a viscous state did Dak carefully pour them into a bottle and hand it to Charles, showing an anxious expression like a student waiting for a teacher to review a test paper. "Come on, my friend, try the sublimation potion I've adjusted." Looking at the bubbling potion in front of him, Charles' heart struggled. If he hadn't seen what ingredients were added to boil this stuff, he might have gritted his teeth and drunk it. But after seeing what Dak threw into it, he couldn't help but resist this stuff. However, after a moment, Charles gritted his teeth and still tilted his head back, gulping down the bottle of sublimation potion with its magic maximized. The moment the potion entered his mouth, a feeling several times more disgusting than the previous bottle surged over him, causing Charles to retch again and again, instinctively digging at his throat. Because this stuff was too disgusting, Charles even rolled his eyes, and his consciousness fell into a brief coma. But soon, a series of dense prompts from the deep blue system startled Charles awake from his coma. Deduction points plus 100. Deduction points plus 100. This time, the density of these prompts was even greater than the first time. By the time the prompts gradually thinned out and the medicinal power of the sublimation potion was absorbed, Charles' remaining 4396 deduction points had surged by over 20,000, with the total exceeding 25,000 points. Charles opened his eyes with difficulty, and seeing this scene, the anxious Dak actually burst into tears of joy and began to cry uncontrollably. "You're not dead, my friend, you're not dead. You are the first person to survive the original sublimation potion. You're right, I shouldn't have doubted the revelations of the sublimated ones. This is right, this is the right way." Charles gave Dak a thumbs up. "Dak, you're almost there, you're already on the path to success. But it's not enough. During my recent blackout, I heard new revelations from the sublimated ones. They congratulated me in my mind. They told me it wasn't intense enough, not enough to allow someone to achieve sublimation. Dak, continue to increase the potency of the potion. The sublimated ones are watching you. An unprecedented great undertaking is ahead." Dak seemed to be inspired, his face filled with the fervor of devout faith. He muttered to himself like a madman. "More intense, it must be that the dosage for the physical detachment part isn't enough. Otherwise, Charles should have already detached from human form. The dosage of these demonic poisons needs to be doubled. Also, the amount of mucus left by the sublimated ones needs to be increased." In the time that followed, Dak consecutively brewed 3 bottles of sublimation potion with increasingly fierce potency. Charles drank all of these increasingly disgusting potions. His deduction points, accumulated through bottle after bottle of sublimation potion, soared all the way to over 100,000 points. At this moment, Charles roared in his mind. 100,000 deduction points. I refuse to believe I can't deduce the Lumos spell to an astonishing level. I refuse to believe I can't kill an old wizard like you. Deep Blue, deduce for me, use all 100,000 points. Following Charles' roar in his mind, Deep Blue also began operating at an unprecedented high intensity since Charles' transmigration to this world. 100,000 deduction points were instantly burned up. In their place was a vast ocean of knowledge, poured into Charles' mind, to the point where his head ached intensely, as if it were about to explode. It was as if in countless parallel worlds, countless Charles had pondered the Lumos spell day and night, and all that knowledge and insight was poured into him. Several directions for enhancing the destructive power of the Lumos spell progressed simultaneously in Deep Blue's deduction. Continuing the direction of the laser spell, generating lasers of higher frequency and higher energy levels. The direction of the flash spell could also be further deduced. Light and heat are one. Converting the light of the flash spell into heat could create an area that incinerates enemies into ash. Countless inspirations and flashes of insight erupted, and finally, the results from several directions combined by chance. A ray of light as scorching as the blazing sun flashed in Charles' mind. Deep Blue's prompts sounded one after another. Host's laser spell has been deduced to a new level. Host's flash spell has been deduced to a new level. Congratulations to the host for deducing a large-scale destructive spell based on the Lumos spell, Eternal Blazing Sun. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 6. You succeeded? In the basement, the blazing sun rises. After a cold, mechanical prompt, information about the Eternal Blazing Sun spell clearly appeared in Charles' mind. The tip of the wand emits a scorching sphere like the sun, which explodes with extreme light and heat after a few seconds, destroying and melting everything within its range. Eternal Blazing Sun deals double damage to dark creatures, ghosts, dark wizards, etc. The range of the eternal blazing sun is related to the host's magic power and mental strength. When the host's magic power and spirit are sufficient, it is possible to release a real sun that covers the sky. Seeing this description, Charles couldn't help but feel a surge of ecstasy in his heart. Magic in the Harry Potter world tends to be single-target attacks and does not have an automatic targeting function. Even the killing curse needs to be aimed. If it misses, there is no damage. This kind of thing relies too much on combat experience. Although Charles had already mastered the Lumos spell after deduction is not actual combat. He wasn't sure he could hit Dak. Therefore, if he deduced a single-target attack spell, Charles would have to find an opportunity to increase his accuracy. But the Eternal Blazing Sun spell was different. It was an extreme area of effect killing spell. As long as Dak was within the explosion range, he would definitely die. Charles didn't believe the shield charm could withstand this power. In Charles' heart, the long-suppressed killing intent began to spread. At this moment, after seeing Charles drink several bottles of sublimation potion and still survive, Dak became even more convinced that Charles' theory was correct. For wizards with sublimation potential, increasing the concentration and potency of the sublimation potion was the correct path to sublimation. He felt that he had seen through everything. Dak fell into extreme excitement and self-forgetfulness. His gaze fell on the materials in his hand. He still had a lot of those deadly poisons, but the key was the green slime left by the ancient beings. After preparing several sublimation potions for Charles, its stock had begun to decrease significantly. If he continued to experiment like this, Dak felt that the amount left for him to prepare sublimation potions didn't seem like much. Therefore, after hesitating for a moment, Dak made a decision. He poured all the highly toxic herbs into the cauldron in one go, and then poured in all the remaining green slime. Soon, an unprecedentedly thick sublimation potion was produced. A nauseating smell filled the entire basement. Dak held the bottle of potion, turned around to look at Charles, and a hint of guilt appeared in his eyes. Charles, my friend, I'm sorry, this sublimation potion is for myself. I have been pursuing this for too long, I don't have time to wait any longer, let me have this opportunity for sublimation first. You are still young, you still have plenty of opportunities. You already know the potion's formula. Other herbs can be bought in places like Nocturne Alley. As for the ruins of the ancient beings, go find R'lyeh, you will definitely find it. Dakesai, must go first and wait for you on the other side of sublimation. Immediately, Dak showed a look of happiness, drank the bottle of sublimation potion in one gulp, and waited for his sublimation. Seeing this scene, a hint of astonishment appeared in Charles' eyes. He had been thinking of taking Dak by surprise, pulling away, and killing him with the Eternal Blazing Sun spell. As a result, Dak drank the sublimation potion himself. The stable version of this stuff could poison so many people to death. Charles had tricked Dak into going down the path of increasing potency and toxicity, never to return. Now Dak had directly maxed out the concentration, probably 10 times higher than the concentration he had given Charles to drink before. Could he still live? Even Godzilla would probably die after drinking it. As expected, Dak's body was already starting to swell with pustules, and then it seemed to melt, beginning to twist and change. Charles' wrist moved, he waved his wand, and easily cut the ropes binding him. Glancing at Dak's current appearance, Charles shivered and quickly ran towards the basement exit. Dak did not try to chase after him, but instead asked a muffled question from his twisting and changing body. My friend, why are you leaving? I am sublimating, I feel it, I am truly sublimating. The scenery ahead is too beautiful, are you sure you don't want to see me with your own eyes? At this time, Charles had already run to the basement door. The door was locked, and Charles hadn't learned the unlocking charm. But it didn't matter, he had the laser spell. With a wave of his wand, high-frequency lasers erupted, cutting a neat opening in the basement door. Hearing Dak's question, Charles turned his head. In the short time it took him to run to the exit, Dak had become unrecognizable, transforming into a twisted, writhing mass of flesh. Each clump of flesh seemed to have its own will, constantly wriggling like tentacles, trying to break free from the mass. They even began to grow their own deformed eyes and mouths full of sharp teeth. This scene was simply a depiction of hell. Charles showed a look of disgust, aimed his wand at the center of the basement, and raised it. Dak, do you know? From beginning to end, I haven't told a single truth. All that talk of sublimation was a lie. What awaits you is not the other shore, but the hell you belong in. Charles waved his wand, and a sphere of light emitting a blazing glow floated out from the tip of his wand, falling towards the center of the basement. Eternal Blazing Sun. The mass of flesh paused, then a frantic roar, like the convergence of countless voices, erupted from within. No. You're lying to me? You're lying to me. But the next moment, Charles had already run out of the basement without looking back. Then, the sphere floated above the mass of flesh that Dak had become and exploded with a boom. Extreme light, extreme heat, poured out, as if a scorching sun had appeared in the basement, annihilating everything. The traces of sin in this basement, Dak's frantic body and mind, were all reduced to ashes under this scorching sun. Charles, who had run dozens of meters away, could still feel the heat wave coming from the basement exit. Waves of dizziness surged, and only one last thought remained in his mind. This damn greeting from the wizarding world. It's over, it's finally over. But perhaps it was just an illusion. In that extreme light and heat, Charles seemed to faintly hear a voice roaring excitedly. My friend, ha ha ha, I knew you were joking with me, you didn't lie to me. I did it, I really did it. After this, Charles' vision went black, and he fell into a coma. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 7. Dream? Let me have another bite. Charles felt like he was in a dream, an incredibly real dream. He dreamt of the deep, sunless seabed, where there was a dry, foul-smelling seafloor stretching for thousands of miles, covered in countless strange, jagged rocks. He dreamt that at the end of that seafloor, a massive, ancient city was sleeping. The ancient temple was located in the center of the city, and various grand, fanatical, and absurd ramblings emanated from the temple's tightly shut, massive doors. In those ramblings, he was sure he had heard a familiar word. Why? Before taking the sublimation potion, Dak had told Charles that he could find the ruins of the ancient ones in R'lyeh, which could be used to concoct the sublimation potion. And in this dream, this word appeared again in those ramblings. Charles stood in this strange world, feeling his mood sink little by little. Was the frantic shout he heard from Dak before he fainted real? Did the sublimation potion succeed? But even if it succeeded, the power of the eternal blazing sun spell should have left no trace of Dak's body. As this thought arose, Charles saw a disgusting mass of flesh constantly wriggling on the seabed in his dream. In just a moment, Dak, clad in a black robe, grew out of that mass of flesh. But unlike before, at this moment, many small tentacles extended from Dak's body, and drops of green viscous liquid dripped from him from time to time. Charles' pupils contracted violently. Dak, you're not dead? Did you do this? Dak also seemed very confused. Charles, my friend, what is that expression? You were the one who pointed out the path to sublimation for me. Look, I now possess an unprecedentedly beautiful form. Why do I feel you are very repulsed by me? The next moment, Dak seemed to realize something. Ah, yes, of course, because you have not yet sublimated, so you are still stubborn with human prejudice. How sad this is, my friend, such an excellent mind trapped within a human body, but fortunately, I will soon liberate you. Dak said excitedly. The ancient ones who once ruled this world, their era is about to return. I have established a connection with you under the witness of the ancient ones, my friend. The true me will descend upon this world through you. Subsequently, the ancient ones will return one after another, and you will become the gateway to open this great era. As he spoke excitedly, the tentacles on Dak's body also couldn't help but wave like octopus tentacles. Some even waved in front of Charles. Listening to Dak's endless excited narration, Charles' body began to tremble slightly. Dak sighed with an obvious sense of superiority. Do not try to resist, do not try to escape. The connection witnessed by them, even if I have sublimated, cannot be severed. Charles, whether you want to or not, embrace me, embrace the great old ones, this is your only choice. At the same time, Charles looked at the waving tentacles in front of him, and a thought inevitably surfaced in his mind. The main ingredient of the sublimation potion is that disgusting green viscous liquid. According to Dak, it is the ruins left by the ancient ones. Judging from Dak's current situation, this stuff should not be rare for the ancient ones, which means that the evolution points they can convert are not high on the ancient ones. What if I eat a tentacle? The evolution points I get should be much higher than the sublimation potion, right? After this thought surfaced, Charles no longer felt disgusted by the waving tentacles in front of him. He only felt as if a large amount of evolution points were dangling in front of him. His consciousness called out in his mind, "Deep Blue." The subsequent mechanical prompt sound completely put Charles at ease. He didn't know what method Dak used to make him have such a real dream and appear in his dream to play tricks. But since the Deep Blue system still responded, Charles could eat with peace of mind. At this moment, Charles raised his head and looked at the tentacles in front of him, no longer able to bear it. He licked his lips and grinned with a fervent smile. Embrace? No, 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 Dak, I'm too happy. An embrace is not enough to show my joy. I'm going to celebrate in my own way. The next moment, Charles reached out and grabbed a tentacle that was swaying in front of him. So tempting, swaying around here. It's decided, you're the first victim. Instantly, Charles opened his mouth and bit down. With that bite, Dak, who had been eloquently recounting the glory of the Ancient Ones, suddenly paused. Countless tentacles began to thrash about in panic. Wait, Charles, what are you doing? What did you do? Charles hugged the tentacle and buried his head in it, gnawing away. With every bite of tentacle he swallowed, Deep Blue's continuous prompts echoed in his mind. Deduction points plus 200. Deduction points plus 200. Charles had only taken a few bites, and the deduction points, which had been completely depleted from deducing the Eternal Blazing Sun spell, had already soared by over 30,000. Charles' eyes were practically green, filled with longing. Just a few bites did this, so what if he ate an entire tentacle? What if he ate all the tentacles on Dak? Wouldn't that be hundreds of thousands, even millions, of deduction points? And what if he ate the Ancient Ones and Great Old Ones that Dak mentioned would descend into this world through him? Wouldn't the deduction points explode? Charles raised his arm high. Dak, my good friend, you're truly too generous. You didn't forget about me even after getting rich. Having a friend like you is truly my Charles' good fortune. Quick, my friend, let me eat a few more bites, I'm really hungry. At this moment, after having a section of his tentacle gnawed off by Charles, Dak was in unprecedented panic. My form, it's disappearing. What exactly are you? Just as Charles opened his mouth wide, wanting to bite off another section of tentacle, Dak's tentacles rapidly retracted. He himself also disappeared at an extremely fast speed. Charles looked around, his eyes first showing confusion, then resentment. Dak, my friend, where are you? Why did you leave? Didn't you want me to embrace you, to congratulate you? My welcoming ceremony isn't over, why did you leave? You didn't even let me finish one tentacle, you lied to me, you don't consider me a friend at all. Dak, don't go, let me have a bite, let me have another bite. Then, Charles said faintly, but don't forget, as you said, we have already established a connection under the gaze of the Ancient Ones, one that even you cannot break. We will meet here again, Dak, you can't hide from me forever. No matter where you are, I will find you. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 8. Gamma Ray Burst roasts the Great Old Ones? Devouring the Elder Wand. But amidst Charles' low whispers, Dak remained nowhere to be seen. Seeing this, Charles sighed regretfully, feeling like he had missed out on a fortune. However, he immediately turned his gaze towards this incredibly real desolate coast. The churning black, viscous, oil-like seawater, the rugged strange rocks, and the grayish-white sand didn't look ordinary in any way. Suddenly, a thought sprouted in Charles' mind. Should I try a taste? Immediately after, he pinched his nose and found a puddle where the viscous black seawater had gathered. A mouthful of black seawater with a strong fishy smell went down, and it was actually converted into a considerable amount of deduction points by the Deep Blue system. Deduction points plus 200. This was already the amount of points Charles would usually accumulate after countless meals. But here, all he had to do was drink a mouthful of seawater, and before Charles' eyes, a vast black ocean was churning. Charles took a deep breath, his eyes filled with ecstasy. If he drank all of this black ocean outside R'lyeh, how many deduction points would that be? It would probably be calculated in the billions. Then Charles reached out again, and in this dream, the only wand he had ever touched in reality actually appeared in his hand. Along with the incantation, a high-frequency laser was emitted from the tip of the wand, easily cutting a black strange rock into pieces. Charles picked up a piece and threw it into his mouth. A taste even more disgusting than seawater spread in his mouth. But what followed was the pleasant prompt from the Deep Blue system. Deduction points plus 400. Charles took a deep breath. Judging by this, the deduction points that could be converted from this rocky beach with strange stones might even be more than that from the Black Ocean. If this outer area contains so many deduction points, what about the ancient city named R'lyeh at the end of the rocky beach? If he ate that city along with everything in the central temple, how many deduction points would that be? If all these deduction points were invested in the Lumos spell, what would the Eternal Blazing Sun spell, which had already been deduced, become? Charles couldn't even imagine it anymore. At this moment, he no longer felt the panic he had when he first arrived here. Instead, he felt as if he had arrived in some kind of paradise on earth. R'lyeh times. Deep Blue's buffet square root. Thank you, the Ancient Ones, thank you, the Great Old Ones, praise R'lyeh. Then I won't be polite. The next moment, Charles was like someone eating a baguette dipped in mushroom soup, holding a piece of black strange rock in one hand and dipping it fully in the viscous seawater with the other, then putting it into his mouth. Prompts of increasing deduction points kept ringing in Charles' mind. After biting Dak a few times and gaining over 30,000 deduction points, Charles' total deduction points soared like a rocket, quickly exceeding 50,000 points again. His eyes showed anticipation, and he asked Deep Blue in his mind, "If I want to continue deducing the Lumos spell and further upgrade the Eternal Blazing Sun spell, how many points will it roughly need?" Deep Blue gave an answer. According to the previous deduction process, the Eternal Blazing Sun spell may have multiple upgrade directions next, such as continuing to evolve towards a celestial body, with the density and energy level of the sphere emitted by the spell increasing, and also having a powerful gravitational binding effect. Another direction is to strengthen the energy radiation effect, taking a path similar to a gamma-ray burst to enhance lethality. It is estimated that at least 1 million deduction points are needed. When he heard this number, if it were before, Charles would probably exclaim how long it would take to accumulate this much. But now, Charles just wanted to say, only 1 million? If he stayed in R'lyeh, he could probably eat up millions of deduction points here in a day. At that time, I'll just add a dish here, gamma-ray burst roasted great old ones. But as Charles was excitedly thinking about this, he was startled to find that the scenery of R'lyeh around him was rapidly receding. He only had time to gulp down the last large mouthful of black stone fragments before watching R'lyeh disappear before his eyes. His dream shattered, and reality descended, revealing where Charles was. This seemed to be a hospital ward, with clean white sheets, curtains, and drapes. Sunlight streamed in through the window, making the room feel especially warm and bright. But right now, in Charles' eyes, these couldn't compare to even a single hair of the eerie and bizarre scene in R'lyeh. Great are the great old ones, mighty are the great old ones. I beg you, let me return to R'lyeh just one more time. I admit I was speaking too loudly just now, and things like gamma-ray burst sounded a bit scary. But you have to believe me, it's just like warming up with a small sun heater in winter, it's very warm and comfortable, you have to believe me. Charles sat up blankly from the hospital bed, his face full of grief and regret, muttering in a low voice. I was so stupid, really, I was so stupid. All I could think about was that, why didn't I eat a few more bites? A free Deep Blue buffet, and no entrance fee, where else can you find that? Just as Charles was immersed in the sorrow of losing R'lyeh, by his bedside, Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, Moody, Fudge, and a host of other figures from the wizarding world looked at Charles' behavior, and expressions of deep sorrow also appeared on their faces. Charles Evans, this child who just escaped death. Has he gone mad? Yes, we can't even imagine the horrific torture he suffered at Dak's hands. Just now, while he was asleep, I heard him shouting Dak's name, and saying things like, "Give him another bite." That deranged dark wizard must have abused him with starvation. Poor child, this is our wizarding world's fault. Dumbledore sighed, drew out the Elder Wand, and said in a low voice, "Let me use magic to help him calm down for a while. After a period of rest, perhaps the shadow of this terrible event can fade from his mind. Hogwarts will always open its doors for you, child." At the tip of the Elder Wand, a silver light appeared, like the light of a patroness. Just seeing it gave one a feeling of healing and forgetting worries. Dumbledore slowly brought the Elder Wand closer to Charles, and said softly, "Sleep, keep sleeping, Charles. Forget these terrible things you've experienced." Everyone else also showed solemn and serious expressions, as if praying for Charles, this poor child who had been caught up in a terrible event. And just as the light of the Elder Wand approached him, Charles had recovered from the grief of losing R'lyeh. Or rather, a new idea had replaced his longing for R'lyeh. This old man with a beard in front of him must be Dumbledore. Then the wand in his hand must be the legendary Deathly Hallow, the Elder Wand, said to possess unparalleled magic. In the original Harry Potter book, even Voldemort, when dueling with the Elder Wand, was miserably bounced back a killing curse by a single Expelliarmus. The power of this item is absolutely the ceiling of the wizarding world. So what if he took a bite? How many deduction points would that be? So the next moment, under the shocked gaze of everyone in the ward, Charles opened his mouth and bit down on the Elder Wand. The spell Dumbledore was brewing was startled into vanishing by Charles' sudden action. How long has he been hungry? He's so hungry he's resorting to gnawing on a wand. Dak, look from hell with your sinful soul, look at what you've driven a poor child to. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 9. I, Fudge, am truly a genius. Amidst the cries of shock, grief, and heartache from the crowd, Charles had already bitten down on the Elder Wand. But it was clear that this item must have some kind of protective spell on it to shield it from physical damage. Otherwise, after centuries of being lost, sometimes even buried in graves, if anything unexpected happened, the Elder Wand would have probably been shattered into pieces long ago. But after all these years, it was still fully functional. Charles took a bite, but couldn't even gnaw off a single wood chip from the Elder Wand. Instead, it hurt his teeth. This also made Charles change his strategy. Just like eating a frozen, rock-hard popsicle, he started to suck on it instead. It was only after sucking a few times that the prompts from the Deep Blue system in Charles' mind started ringing out in a flurry. Deduction points plus 500. Deduction points plus 500. After a few sucks, nearly 5,000 deduction points were pocketed. Charles gasped. Was this the value of a Deathly Hallow? Just sucking on it a few times yielded so many deduction points. Immediately, Charles also learned from his previous experience in the Dream of R'lyeh. He didn't think about anything else and focused on seizing this opportunity to earn deduction points. 1 suck, 2 sucks, 3 sucks. Charles' deduction points continued to soar. In the blink of an eye, they were approaching the previous peak of 100,000 points, enough to deduce a basic, ordinary spell like the Lumos spell into a forbidden curse like the Eternal Blazing Sun spell. Unfortunately, just as Charles was still reluctant to let go of the Elder Wand, Dumbledore, with a look of helplessness, said gently, "Mr. Evans, could you please let go of my wand?" Only then did Charles sheepishly release his grip. Dumbledore gently tapped the wand, and the few remaining marks on it immediately vanished without a trace. At this moment, a nurse from St. Mungo's Hospital also quickly brought a tray and placed it in front of Charles. "Poor child, look how hungry you are. Eat quickly, slowly, there's more if it's not enough." To be honest, Charles only realized it then. During the time he was kidnapped by Dak, other than the sublimation potion, he really hadn't eaten or drunk anything else. Even the little bit of food in his stomach had been vomited out from the nausea. He was truly hungry. This time, Charles didn't use the Deep Blue system to convert the food into deduction points. Instead, he buried his head and started eating ravenously. Besides alleviating the hunger in his stomach, Charles also wanted to use this time to think about how to deal with the Ministry of Magic Aurors if they were to ask what exactly happened in Dak's basement later. But upon seeing Charles start to eat heartily with grunts and chomps, everyone in the ward relaxed a little, including the few wizards who clearly exuded a bureaucratic aura. Compared to asking a Muggle child who had just experienced a magical outburst and been abducted by Dak what happened, they were clearly more concerned about another matter. That was their approval rating. Charles was alive, and other than being starving, he seemed mentally normal. This was the best possible news for them. Otherwise, after being reported by the journalists and seeing Charles' miserable state, the wizarding public, who were already not very satisfied with them, might have their anger instantly ignited. At that time, if protests and demonstrations broke out, their political opponents would also seize the opportunity to make a big fuss, and they might even be forced to step down early. Compared to this, how Dak died, was that important? Most likely, he drank the potion and ended up killing himself. If not, they could just make up a legendary story based on the remaining traces. The person was dead, the truth no longer mattered. What was important was to protect their positions in this turmoil. So, after a moment, a short old man with a head of fluffy white hair walked over. He glanced at Dumbledore by the bedside, a look of vigilance deep in his eyes, as if guarding against Dumbledore using this incident to make trouble and seize his power. Then, he came before Charles and introduced himself. "Mr. Charles Evans, I am Cornelius Fudge, the current Minister of Magic, which is what you Muggles call." "What was it called again? Prime Minister? Oh right, that's the word. I deeply sympathize with your experience. That deranged fellow Dak has already caused enough suffering to the wizarding world. Thanks to your bravery and wisdom, Dak has been eliminated this time, and you have made a great contribution." After saying a lot of pleasantries, Fudge finally revealed his true intention. It turned out he hoped Charles could cooperate with the Ministry of Magic for some publicity and accept some interviews to calm public opinion, to minimize the big issues and resolve the small ones. Dumbledore's eyes on the side showed anger. "Minister, Charles is still a child, and he's just been through something so terrible. You want to talk to him about this now?" Fudge chuckled dryly, but his attitude remained firm, and he even spoke to Charles with a hint of enticement. "Think about it, you'll become a star in the wizarding world's newspapers. You'll be the new boy who lived. Do you know about the boy who lived? He's practically a legend in the wizarding world. When you start school, all your classmates will look at you with adoration, including those pretty little girls." Ahem, just imagine the scene. A hint of mockery surfaced in Charles' heart. As expected, meeting him is worse than hearing about him. Cornelius Fudge, the politician in the original story who would stop at nothing for his political career. He even dismissed Voldemort's return as a fallacy, ultimately giving the Death Eaters ample time to grow and directly causing the Ministry of Magic to fall. Many fans of the Harry Potter original story jokingly call him a Death Eater mole. Looking at him now, he's indeed a complete power animal. It's just a shame that the bargaining chips Fudge is offering are only good for deceiving naive children. but inside Charles' body is the soul of an adult. The boy who lived? Whoever wants that title with no benefits can have it. At least being an outstanding individual at his previous job was useful for getting promoted. So after a moment, Charles repeated his question. A star? Adored by thousands? Fudge nodded repeatedly. Yes, exactly. In Fudge's opinion, no child could resist such temptation. What he never expected was that Charles' expression was incredibly firm and full of responsibility. Minister Fudge, if you've paid attention to me, you'll know that I'm also a well-known star in the Muggle world you speak of. I firmly believe that public figures need to have a sense of responsibility. I must tell the truth of the matter and Dax's wickedness exactly as they are, so that justice can be served, and parents and children will pay more attention to safety precautions, and perhaps such things won't happen again in the future. I, Charles, am unyielding and will never bury the truth for a mere title. Such a price is not enough to buy me off. Dumbledore, standing nearby, showed a relieved smile. This child, Charles, has such courage and determination, such a strong sense of responsibility. He's definitely a Gryffindor. Fudge, on the other hand, looked embarrassed. Having his calculations exposed by this child, Charles, and then being lectured in return, made the old fox feel a burning sensation on his face, making him wish he could leave this embarrassing scene immediately. However, thinking that if Charles were to truly elaborate on the truth and it was widely reported by the Wizarding World's newspapers, the emotions of the wizarding public might be stirred up, and his position would truly become unstable. Fudge endured the embarrassment and stayed. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he racked his brain for a way to make Charles change his mind. He then remembered that the information he had read mentioned that Charles was a well-known genius student throughout the Muggle world in the UK. He hadn't paid attention at the time, but the facts proved that trying to tempt Charles with a star aura was completely ineffective. What other way was there to calm the situation? A thought flashed through Fudge's mind like lightning. He remembered that the information also mentioned that Charles seemed to have a peculiar obsession with food. Looking at Charles' behavior after waking up, it was clear that the information was not false. With this thought, Fudge had a flash of inspiration and proposed another condition. Mr. Evans, to express our apology and compensation to you, all your future expenses for food and drink in the wizarding world will be reimbursed by the Ministry of Magic. As soon as these words were spoken, Charles, who was burying his head in the hospital meal, immediately looked up, his eyes showing an unusual sparkle. Minister, are you serious? Anything I eat, the Ministry of Magic will reimburse? Even if I eat a lot, and have a tiny bit of a peculiar eating habit, that's okay too. Hearing Charles' question, Fudge was overjoyed and nodded solemnly. Yes, that's right, everything is okay. We can sign an agreement right now. The Ministry of Magic will permanently guarantee your food expenses. The next moment, without any hesitation, Charles said decisively, deal. At the same time, he sincerely let out a sigh of admiration. Minister Fudge, you truly are a good person. While Charles was expressing his admiration and agreeing to the condition, Dumbledore, who had just been looking on with a face full of relief, almost pulled off his beard at that moment. No, wasn't he just unyielding? Now, for the sake of food reimbursement, he agreed? Charles Evans, I was mistaken, you are definitely not a Gryffindor. Undoubtedly a Hufflepuff. Fudge, on the other hand, revealed a smile like an old fox, his heart swelling with smugness. I, Fudge, am truly a genius. I so easily saw through this child's weakness and resolved a political crisis at a negligible cost. I can even use this to promote the Ministry of Magic's humanitarian care. As for food reimbursement, how much can this child eat? Even if he ate for 100 years, could he possibly bankrupt the Ministry of Magic? Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description. 10. This wave isn't a loss, Minister Fudge is a great philanthropist. At this moment, Fudge glanced at Dumbledore, whose expression by the hospital bed was quite something, and for the first time, he felt a sense of vindication. Heaven knows how much he feared Dumbledore's threat to his position of power. After all, this renowned white wizard was not only powerful but also had disciples everywhere. Fudge believed that if Dumbledore had even the slightest thought of taking over as Minister of Magic, he would be swept out of office the very next moment. Therefore, every time he faced Dumbledore, Fudge felt immense pressure. But this time, Fudge felt he was truly a genius. With only a small price, he had resolved a political crisis. Surely Dumbledore would see this and be wary of his methods, no longer daring to underestimate him. Immediately after, as if afraid Charles would change his mind, Fudge instantly summoned the Ministry of Magic officials responsible for drafting proposals and quickly drew up a document on the spot. Then, after Charles signed his name, Fudge forcefully stamped it with the seal representing the Minister of Magic. After the seal was affixed, Fudge let out a long breath, as if a huge stone pressing on his chest had been removed. Well then, my dear Charles, you rest well. Eat whatever you want, don't worry about saving the Ministry of Magic money. The Ministry of Magic exists to serve wizards, especially young wizards like you. We still have some matters to attend to, so we'll see you later, Charles. Fudge warmly bid farewell to Charles before leaving St. Mungo's hospital with his staff. As soon as they left the ward, his staff couldn't hide their admiration and were utterly convinced by Fudge. Minister, this move of yours is brilliant, simply brilliant. When I heard Charles say he wanted to make the truth public, I was already panicking, not knowing what to do. Only the minister could come up with such a genius solution. Covering food expenses? Such an insignificant condition, yet it directly solved such a big problem. We can even use this for publicity and show the entire wizarding world that the Ministry of Magic cares for the vulnerable. Wonderful, truly wonderful. Facing the flattery of his staff, Fudge felt a surge of elation, his smile as uncontrollable as the trajectory of an AK bullet. While his staff usually flattered him, it was often somewhat exaggerated. How could it compare to this genuine praise? Just average, average. He's just a child, easy to handle. The key is to understand people's hearts. Dumbledore is powerful, right? Heh, but he doesn't understand people's hearts, which is why he can't be the Minister of Magic. Just as Fudge was boasting to his staff while leaving St. Mungo's hospital, an elf flew out of St. Mungo's hospital and dropped a bill into Fudge's arms. Fudge chuckled. It seems our Charles couldn't wait to use his privilege. He's a child after all, he can't resist good food. As he spoke, Fudge opened the envelope, intending to take out the bill and hand it over to his staff to handle. But the next moment, Fudge suddenly froze, looking at his staff with some suspicion. Can anyone answer me a question? How many copies of the bill does St. Mungo's hospital issue now? Why is this bill over a dozen pages long? They can't possibly be using a billing method that counts every single birdie bots every flavor bean, can they? Suddenly, Fudge had a bad feeling. He quickly examined the details of the bill and then was completely dumbfounded. St. Mungo's Hospital Magical Recovery Meal, large size, total 20 portions. Bruise and Injury Rapid Recovery Meal, total 20 portions. 100 chocolate frogs. Damn it, they even ordered 50 bags of Birdie Bots every flavor beans? Is Charles planning to open a convenience store? Fudge abruptly turned his head, looking at the staff he had brought to draft the magical agreement, and asked with a hint of displeasure. When you drafted the agreement, did you make it clear that this agreement is only valid when Charles himself consumes the food? The Ministry of Magic does not reimburse for packing or reselling. Did you make that clear? The staff member swallowed hard and nodded repeatedly. Yes, I swear I wrote it. I didn't leave any loopholes for Charles to exploit. Fudge was stunned for a long time. Then what does this mean? You mean, Charles ate all of this by himself? Damn, is he a reincarnated Hufflepuff? After standing in a daze for a long time, Fudge finally recovered from his utterly bewildered state, forcing a smile, both comforting himself and his staff. Forget it, forget it. Having a large appetite is nothing. The Ministry of Magic isn't so poor that we can't afford this small expense. At least Charles is eating normal food, not rare magical materials or potions. We can afford this. This deal, it's not a loss at all. Fudge and his staff left amidst repeated cries of not a loss. At St. Mungo's Hospital, Dumbledore was having something akin to a dessert sharing session with Charles. Upon seeing Charles' astonishing appetite, and how he seemed to eat anything and everything without any reservations, Dumbledore, who had always enjoyed strange candies, couldn't help but pull out his treasured collection. A pile of candies called cockroach clusters, which burst with juice like real cockroaches, were a particular highlight recommended by Dumbledore. To his delight, facing these candies that almost all the staff usually avoided, Charles showed a look of joy and devoured them one after another with gusto. This made Dumbledore feel a sense of finding a kindred spirit. Charles, at this moment, was overjoyed. The food, desserts, and snacks in the wizarding world could indeed provide quite a few deduction points. At least dozens of times more than ordinary food. Charles estimated that if he ate like this for every meal, he could gain 300 to 400 deduction points a day. That would be over 10,000 in a month, more than the total from the past 10 years. And this was just ordinary wizarding world food. If Charles ate something even stranger, like magical creatures containing a large amount of magic, or certain alchemical items and potions, the points he could gain would increase significantly. Of course, if he ate like this, Charles' current financial situation wouldn't be enough to sustain him. Furthermore, buying things in the wizarding world required wizarding world currency, and there was an annual limit on converting Muggle currency to wizarding world currency. In the original story, Hermione's father was a dentist, and their family was quite well off, so Hermione would not have lacked pocket money. But even then, Hermione had to save diligently to buy things she wanted. With Charles' eating habits, the small amount of galleons he could exchange within the annual limit wouldn't even be enough to fill a gap in his teeth. But who could blame the kind and benevolent Minister Fudge for signing such an agreement with Charles, completely removing all his worries? Thinking of this, Charles' impression of Fudge was completely refreshed. What Death Eater spy, what Death Eater without the dark mark, what meritorious official for Voldemort's return. I, Charles, will not allow you to slander Minister Fudge like that. Minister Fudge is truly a great benefactor. Join me on Patreon if you want to request a novel, link in the description.
Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Also, you can request any novel so I can turn into audiobooks. Check out our Patreon for more details.